This is Tessa Keogh, and if it's Tuesday, it's time for Tuesday's tip. Today I thought we'd talk a little bit about cleaning up our legacy database. Now, summer starts on June 21st, so I know it's a little late for spring cleaning, but I think if we commit to a few projects over the summer, we'll be able to clean up or fine-tune our legacy database. Now, I think it's important to have a strategy. Pick your projects, and that's going to help you clean up your database. And keep in mind that Legacy provides a lot of tools right in the program to help you. And those include the system to back up your family file maintenance, master list cleanup, the potential problems report, tags, determining the status of your to-dos, and compacting your family file. Now, I spend about an hour each week on a project to keep my legacy database up to date. Some things are pretty easy, and Legacy does the heavy lifting. Some things take a little bit of effort on my part, but a little bit of time spent each week keeps it from being a massive project later, and it always helps, as I said, to have a strategy. Now, if you do nothing else, make sure you know how and actually back up your database at least every month, but be sure to do it if you've done a lot of data entry on any given day. Now, if you sync your database or otherwise have continuous backups that are done automatically, great. But you also need to have a backup that's off-site, shared, and or maintained somewhere other than where your main computer is located. So as you can see from this screen here, if you click on File and drop down to Backup Family File, which is at Control B, that opens up the project to back up your family file. And once you do that, you can customize your backup. Now, I back up all my data files, but I don't put my multimedia files in my Legacy program, so that's one box I don't have checked. Take a look at the Help section, and that's right here, and it's also on any section that you open up in Legacy. But take a look at that Help section if you have any questions. Play with the options if you need to, and then back up your files. Now, I'm sure that you've noticed that Thomas McKenty does a great job of reminding us to back up on the first of the month. So if you only back up on the first of the month, that's at least a start. And the only thing you need to keep in mind is that fried hard drive that he pictures every month. That gets me to do it. So make sure you do it as well. Now, one phrase I'm going to use a lot is AED, and that stands for Add, Edit, and Delete. In this first instance, we're going to talk about the master surname list. Now, I make it a point to go into the master surname list, take a look at it about every 6 months, just to make sure that I don't have any errors in it. Now, when you work with this master list or any master list, make a point to be thoughtful and review the list with AED in mind. Whether it's a spelling error or a surname that you no longer use, reviewing your master surname list every 6 months takes very little time and keeps that list fine-tuned. The next item is the master event address list. Yet again, AED. Take a look at your list on a regular basis. How many entries do you have, and do any of them need to be updated? I make a point of working on a letter of the alphabet every other week to update this list. And what I do is I make sure that the address, the phone number, the website, and the email are all current. And I've started adding notes for the hours of operation, office closings, and any special information that might be helpful when I actually go to any of these addresses. Now, I do the same thing for my master repository address list. You'll find that once you've added the information in, it really is a small matter to update your information to keep it current. And be sure to include notes about special fees, parking, or contact information. This is especially important when you go on a research trip, as then you'll have that information right in your Legacy program. Now, every 3 months, I review my master location list, and I think this is especially useful when I've done lots of research and data entry. It helps me keep the master list section clean. Keep in mind that you can sort your master location list in a variety of ways. In this first instance, I've shown you with country, state, county, and city or town, but by sorting, by clicking on this button, you can switch it to be town, county, state, and country. And there's a variety of other choices as well. And also take a look at the sort location list and keep in mind that there are a total of 9 slots or placeholders. You are not limited to 4, as many people seem to think. And then there's also a number of predefined ones. Take a look at it, play with it, and do whatever works for you. The master event definition list is something you should take a look at and give some thought to once you start entering events in Legacy. So that's pretty early on. I went through the list at the outset and I deleted events that I knew would never apply to my family, and I added events or facts that do apply. And I might treat this differently than others in this group do, but I put all my events and facts in this section as opposed to notes so that they read in chronological order from my reports. And so that's a hats off to Linda McCauley on that tip. So, for instance, I added sacramental events because I'm Roman Catholic. This would include baptism, First Communion, confession. I also included certain Swedish events, the emigration register, the household examination records. I added Norwegian events, which is the Beidebok, which is the Norwegian farm books. I also added particular facts, SSDI, find a grave, various registers and indexes that I use. And since I do a lot of immigration and citizenship facts, I include those separately, for instance, the notice, the petition, and the order. And in this way, I'm able to redefine or play with those sentences and revise them to make them really work for how I do my data entry. Now make sure to take some time to think through your master sources. And I've mentioned this several times, but you really need to decide if you're a lumper or a splitter and then commit to it. So make sure your master source list names are clear enough that you can find them easily. And also remember that these names are for your use only. They're not part of the citation. So take some time and select names that are going to be easy for you to find. Another look at the master source list shows you that I include a description of the source. In this instance, it's Find a Grave. I mention who the owner-operator is, as well as the fact that it's done by contributors. And in this section over here, and they're all in text and comments, I put in how I enter the information in the master source and in the detail. And this is a really good place to put this information so that if I share this database with a co-researcher, they understand how we're entering the data. And also, when I go back to it, if I haven't worked with it for a while, I know how it is I enter my data, so I'm consistent. Now, the master source type list contains all the source type names that are being used in your family file. Legacy only records one copy of each of those different source types, and it points any use of that to the entry in your list. So you can add, edit, rename, or delete source types. You can also combine duplicates. This master list can be updated on basically an as-used basis, and I would just check it every 6 months. Now, when you're working with master sources, this is one of the major projects to have a clear, concise, and complete master source definition. And that's the first step in entering your master sources. I'd make a point when adding or editing master sources to check your source definition against whatever system you're using. Personally, I use Evidence Explained. I keep the PDF book version open on my computer and work through my master sources. And I do those in groups. For instance, I entered all the U.S. censuses as master sources at one time, even though I didn't have any actual censuses to link with them at that time. I also entered all my Newfoundland research citations and a number of books that I owned or had taken out of the library that I was using for my research. So I entered all of that information even though I didn't have the citations to go with them or the source detail, and then it was much easier to just click onto those master sources knowing they were clean and start entering my data. The master to-do category list is another one of those lists that if you spend a bit of time with it at the outset, you're only going to need to AED or add, edit, or delete every 6 months. And make sure to include the locality in your master to-do locality list. It makes it much easier to run a research or a to-do report. Now, this is one of my few pet peeves with Legacy. I wish that they use the same localities, the same system that we use with the master location list, so that you could easily sort it and that everything was done by country, state, county, and then town or village. Because I have a real issue with just bringing these up individually with whatever the first letter of the first word is. Now, do you use Search the Internet feature in Legacy? And if you do you know that you can customize the searches for the 8 websites that you use the most? You're not limited to the particular ones that came with the Legacy program. So why not make your searches easier and update your string searches for 8 websites? Now, Legacy also makes it easy to check your work. So if you're missing sources, you can easily check here. Legacy's going to let you know. There's also a missing information section where you can check your work and find individuals that are missing any of the major pieces of information. Now, you can run that report and get all the information at one time, or you can work on a particular item at a time. Now, be sure to run potential problems report. This is a great feature because it helps you find those bad dates that you entered, or those impossible family relationships, or unsorted children. And if you use tagging to work through research, be sure to check it and follow through on any of that work that you tagged and we're going to get back to, because you want to free up those tags for more and better research in the future. Here I'm showing the advanced tagging feature, but keep in mind that tagging and the ability to tag shows up in many of the master lists that we've already discussed. There are an amazing number and a variety of types of reports in Legacy. Be sure to check them all out and make the most of your work. I'd tell you to keep in mind the USA County Verifier, the Event Report, the Location Report, what I've mentioned before, potential problems. Those are great ones for starters. And finally, put together a calendar or a schedule. As I mentioned before, at least once a month back up your Legacy files. Every 3 months, run a potential problems report and AED your master source and master location lists. Every 4 months, AED your master surname, master event, and master repository lists. And every 6 months, AED your master event and master source type lists, and check that your tags and your to-dos are updated. I think if you do this, you're going to find that your Legacy database is fine-tuned and cleaned up and ready to go anytime you're going to start adding more data. Be sure to check out all of our Tuesday's tips at the Legacy Virtual Users Group community on Google+.